charge you? You should drink Mike's Marmalade. Is that stuff still around?
Zima when I was a kid.
That's right.
You might be too young.
No, it's like the same age.
I thought you were like Ryan's age.
Like 75.
Dog years.
Okay, ready? Here we go. This time I'll call to order the February 6, 2025 meeting of the Clearwater City Council. If you wish to address the council tonight, please complete a comment card. Comment cards are located by the clerk seated to the right of the dais. When called to speak, please hand your card to the clerk. This time I ask for everyone to please rise, and I will deliver tonight's invocation. Our Father, thank you for the opportunity for us to convene here tonight as a group, as a community group, in a safe place to discuss ideas on how we can all work together to make this community better than ever. Guide us and lead us through wise decisions and help us consider the input of the entire community to make those wise decisions and to always trust in you to do the right thing by the people that we serve. All this we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time, before we begin tonight's meeting, I'd like to introduce the dais. To my far left is our city clerk, Rosemary Call.
Good evening.
To her right is our city attorney, David Margolis.
Good evening.
To his right is our council member, Mike Menino.
Good evening.
To his right and my left is Vice Mayor David Albritton.
Good evening.
To my right is Councilmember Alina Teixeira.
Good evening.
To her right is Councilmember Ryan Cotton.
Good evening.
To his right is our city manager, Jennifer Poirier.
Good evening.
And to her right is Assistant City Manager Dan Slaughter. That will move to item 4.1 on the agenda, and I'd like to call forward the City of Clearwater Diversity Leadership Council. This time I'll read a proclamation in honor of Black History Month. Whereas since 1976, the month of February has been recognized as Black History Month. And whereas Black History Month is an important opportunity to acknowledge and celebrate the many African American heroes who have made our nation and the city of Clearwater a better place to live, work, visit, and grow. And whereas Clearwater has been enriched by the immeasurable contributions made by our African American community, and we cherish this moment to highlight their achievements. Whereas Black History Month is an important time to celebrate the many achievements and contributions made by African Americans to Clearwater's cultural diversity, social equality, and economic contributions. Now, therefore, I, Bruce Rector, Mayor of the City of Clearwater, Florida, on behalf of the Clearwater City Council, do proclaim February 2025 as Black History Month in the City of Clearwater. This observance affords special opportunities to become more knowledgeable about Black history and to honor the many African Americans who have contributed to our great nation. Thank you all for attending tonight and accepting this proclamation. Someone would like to say a few words about upcoming activities for the month?
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for the proclamation. My name is Barbara Sori Love, and I am here representing Clearwater's NAACP Branch 5096, and along with Miss Eleanor Breland. And thank you so much for honoring our history. Clearwater Heights, Mac-Dixon subdivision, one of the first African-American settlements in Clearwater, founded 1909. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mayor, Council, Javante Scott, Neighborhood Services Coordinator. On behalf of the Diversity Leadership Council, City of Clearwater staff, we'd invite each of you, along with our fellow colleagues, employees, to the Clearwater Gas Building on February 27th at noon to join us for a Black History Month Lunch and Learn celebration with speakers, food, educational, and an opportunity to learn more about the heritage in which we celebrate this month. So to each of you, on behalf of the council, thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Hey,
Good job.
hey.
Congratulations, and good job.
Thank you.
Ellen, congratulations. Wonderful.
That was good.
Yes, thank you.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you,
That's very nice. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
There's a little downhill.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tiffany.
That's really what you should be.
Okay, with that, we'll move to item 4.2 on the agenda, North Beach update. This time, I'd like to call forward Marcus Williamson, our Public Works Director.
Evening, Mayor, council members. Marcus Williamson, Public Works Director. So not a whole lot as we're kind of getting into a little bit of the slower season. So as far as maintenance activities, again, we've cleaned everything. And we did end up meeting with Inliner, who's our company that does the barnacle cleanings. They actually flew some folks in from their corporate because we were trying to work through to make sure that we're going to be ready going into the other season. They've agreed that as we get into the hurricane season, they understand it's going to be important to us. They'll get out there, help us do a good check of the pipes from the cleaning, inspecting, and the barnacle removal, so that we'll be ready. So that was some good news that their corporate is going to step in and help out. We heard through the budget pieces too. Look not just at what we're doing that we talked through the budget strategy, but look at other opportunities for budget savings. So we'll look at that as we're going through these projects also. How can we make sure that we're achieving what we need to, but if there's cost-effective solutions. One of the brainstorming ideas the team already kind of came up with is let's do a standard design for the pump stations that's much more of the copy-paste that we can use not just on North Beach, but as we have other areas that we may start to run into these problems also, that it'll be available. That way we don't have to keep paying for redesigns. It standardizes parts, standardizes maintenance efforts. So we feel like all of that will be a big cost savings in the future. There also have been continuing to run different scenarios. So as we saw in the storms, a lot of times the design folks may just plan for a 20-year storm, specific rain events that they're looking at. We've been cycling through different scenarios. What happens with the wall overtopping? What happens if it's back-to-back storms? And so they've been walking through a bunch of those different scenarios so that we don't run down one design. We can look at a couple of these different options before we start honing in on things. So that was kind of all I had. Any questions?
Councilmember Menino.
I thank you. I thank you for the updates. I guess we've been covering Clearwater, Beach for quite a while, and I guess my question is, outside of the beach, post-storm, is there any areas, Cooper's Point and things like that, Alligator Creek, that we're really identifying that we have bigger issues than we thought, or things that as we go into the storm that you're really paying a lot of attention to?
There's a number of locations that we identified, and we had two different types of storm events. So we have some issues that we run into when it's the tidal surges, the high tidals. So we know Bayshore Drive consistently floods that's out there. So we are looking at that. We've started looking at a project to raise that. We've gone after some grant funding, some legislative efforts in trying to get some funds for that also. So we're looking at those. Alligator Creek, we've been taking a deep dive. We've flown some drones through there because a lot of it's very inaccessible. We identified, and we actually think it's probably a couple of storms that had some of the high winds, knocked some trees down. We're going to have to get back in, clean some of those up. A number of different ponds and lakes that are out there. Are they operating the way that we want them to? So, you know, we know Moccasin Lake is kind of silted in over time. So there's a few of those. So we're starting to peel apart a bunch of these areas that across the city that excuse me, that we'll need to get in. We're also updating models so that we can do similar things what we're doing on North Beach in some of these areas, so we can start bringing forward, here's how we feel like is the smartest money. We know we're gonna have to prioritize projects over a number of years, but let's try to make what are the biggest bangs for the bucks or the most impactful ones and bring those forward.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilmember Cotton?
I was just going to say thank you very much for the update and for streamlining the process and thinking outside of the box. I think that that's huge, especially with looking at an overall fit, trying to stay, like you said, with parts, labor and maintenance and all those things. I think that that's really key, especially when it comes to infrastructure and trying to, hey, we don't need to hire a different company here to take care of this one. So thank you very much for being cognizant of that for you and your team. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's the team too, so
Absolutely.
they're the ones thinking that way, so.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. That will move to item 5.1 on the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. This time we'll move to item 6 on the agenda, the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent?
Yes, Mayor, I've
agenda?
received a request to remove item 6.2.
Move to approve agenda items 6.1, 6.3, 6.4, and 6.5.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. We'll move to item 6.2 on the agenda.
Approve an interlocal maintenance agreement between Pinellas County and the City of Clearwater for the purpose of installing, operating, maintaining automatic license plate readers within the county right-of-way, and authorize the appropriate officials to execute same.
Evening, Mayor, Council, Chief Gandy, Clearwater PD. As we discussed on Monday, the county requires an interlocal maintenance agreement whenever we install anything on their right-of-way. We're requesting authorization to engage in that agreement with the county for the purpose of installing 3 additional license plate readers. The locations will be Sunset Point Road and Skyline Drive, Belcher Road and Logan, and South Belcher Road and Bel Air. Be glad to answer any questions.
Is there anyone here from the public who desires to speak to agenda item 6.2?
I'm Mr. Haluba. The Fourth Amendment guarantees the right of citizens to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects. Protects us against unreasonable searches and seizures. An automobile is a personal effect. Anything attached to that automobile is a personal effect. Now, I'm disappointed with the license plate reader program because I believe that it's easily abused. It's a warrantless surveillance dragnet, many believe stomps all over the Fourth Amendment. But I'm even more disappointed in the fact that, again, we hear from Gandy, take an entire 44 seconds babbling his banal, trite, and stale request for more cameras. Not one of you, the other day or tonight, has one question about this. Apparently you didn't get permission ahead of time to ask him a question. It just seems to be, a little more evidence that the city council takes its marching orders from Gandy, Wallach, and Slaughter, the fiefdom. I think it's a shame. Shame on all of you. when is this data deleted, if ever? Is this information available to anyone under the Florida open records laws? How can you trust Gandy to use this information correctly and legally when he can't even properly supervise the Clearwater Police Department? Not one of you publicly comments on the shoddy performance overall of Clearwater Police, or especially that of Eric Gandy. Terminate Eric Gandy at once. He's not doing his job. Now, it seems obvious again that this city council, by not asking these sort of questions, is being bullied, intimidated, and is terrified to take any action or even comment on Gandy, Wallach, or Slaughter. They are truly our local Three Stooges. Mr. Gandy, Fanculo Buco del Culo.
Does anyone else here from the public desire to speak to agenda item 6.2? Okay. Any council discussion?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, Vice Mayor? Yeah.
Well, the reason that I don't speak up against our police department is we have a difference of opinion. I think that they do a great job. So that's the reason why that we don't have any counterpoint. The thing about these license plate readers, you know, Island Estates pays for one at their entrance, and the reason they work well is because any kind of anything going on that burglaries or anything, they come out of Island Estates, they're red. They can find them immediately. And I know these license plate readers are going in strategic places in Clearwater. They're not going to be abused. I think it's a great thing. So I'm going to make a motion to accept agenda item 6.2.
Second.
I just wanted to add on to a little bit what you said. I was on the NBC Today show on a day or so ago. They interviewed me over safety concerns over spring break for Florida beach destinations and some measures that are taking in Miami to make sure everyone's safe when visiting. And I shared with them that these cameras, license plate readers, particularly coming on and off the causeway, they've already solved a serious crime for us in the last 2 or 3 years, and they are critical to public safety. We have 6 million visitors to Clearwater Beach annually, and we have to make sure if things happen, we're able to identify folks and keep people safe. We have large crowds, it's just like a sporting event at Raymond James Stadium or Amalie Arena. We have to manage, and I thank our police department for using all the tools necessary to keep not only our residents, but our visitors here safe. We have always had a safe community to visit for spring break, and we will have one going forward, thanks to the technology we're employing, all these things we're doing to stay ahead of the game and keep people safe. So with that, we've had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. This time we'll move to item 7.1 on the agenda.
Approve the City of Clearwater's fiscal year 2023-2024 consolidated annual performance and evaluation report.
Good evening. My name is Dylan Mayo. I'm the acting housing manager. The consolidated annual performance and evaluation plan, the report is the CAPER. Provides a comprehensive overview of how we've used federal funds over the past year. We also include our state and local data in order to provide a comprehensive overview of the work that we've completed in the previous year. This is the second public hearing of 2, and once approved, the CAPER will be submitted to HUD. On Monday, I went over the details as to what the CAPER is, and I provided a summary of its findings. And with that, I'm here to address any questions.
Does anyone here from the public desire to speak to agenda item 7.1? If there's none, is there any council discussion? If there's none, is there a motion?
Move to approve agenda item 7.1.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. This time we'll move to agenda item 7.2.
Provide direction on the proposed development agreement between AP Beach Properties LLC and the City of Clearwater for property located at 405 Coronado Drive, providing for the allocation of 100 units from the Hotel Density Reserve under Beach by Design, and confirm a second public hearing in City Council chambers before City Council on February 20, 2025 at 6 p.m. or soon thereafter as may be heard.
All right, thank you. Good evening, council. I'm Ted Kozak, Planning and Development. Proposed is a development agreement between the property owner of 405 Coronado Drive and the city. Requested is the allocation of 100 units from the Hotel Density Reserve under Beach by Design. It is consistent with Section 5.B.2 of Beach by Design, and that's pertaining to the reserve itself. The property is 1.759 acres in size and is located along Coronado Drive, 5th Street, and Hampton Drive, excuse me. Proposed is construction of 135 overnight accommodation units with 20,000 square feet of retail, 6,825 square feet of restaurant area. There's a provision of 400 parking spaces, 50 of which is for the general public. Based on prior approvals, 1.32 acres of development area remains available. The project intensity aligns with established levels of service for concurrency as anticipated by Beach by Design. Briefly, there was some background history. Priorly, there was an approved development agreement to allocate 100 units under Beach by Design from the Density Reserve. Currently, the same footprint with similar proposal as before, so setbacks and height. But there's a reduction of hotel units from 166 to 135. And this is to allow the provision of additional amenity areas without increasing intensity. So now reducing to 77 hotel units per acre. Originally, the first agreement way back in the 10 years ago was 125 units per acre. The development agreement expired in October of 2024. This is consistent with the comprehensive plan, community development code, and Beach by Design, and recommendation is for approval. And I'll take any questions at this time.
Yeah, City Attorney, on this, it's not an approval, there's not public comment on this agenda item?
Well, that's up to the council. I mean, I think generally speaking, because it is on a Thursday night item, if you're going to make a motion, then you would have to accept public comment. If it's simply something where there's informal direction being given, you don't have to accept public comment. Part of the issue here, and this is just kind of big picture, is the way that we handle development agreements. So under Florida law, there are two required hearings, public hearings, which are advertised and which public comment must be accepted. Under Florida law, the city has the option to either have both of those hearings come in front of you, or you can delegate one of those hearings to your local planning agency, which in our case is CDB. So the city has made the decision over a span of many years to have the first hearing held in front of CDB, and that way you get diverse perspectives between the CDB members hearing it as well as the council hearing it. The twist, I would say, in Clearwater, and someone like Ms. Maskey, who's been here a lot longer than I am, would probably have much better institutional knowledge than I do. But I think the twist here is that we tend to bring forward the development agreements to the council at a very early stage in the process to get that early input and early perspective from the council. There is no requirement under Florida law that it be brought to anyone at this moment in time. I think that it would be proper, if we wanted to just say it'll go to a first public hearing in front of CDB, and that'd be the first time that anyone hears about it. But I think in an interest of transparency, the intention has always been to bring it forward as early as possible and to get that informal direction from council first, so that we don't go through, number one, the entire process, come to the end of it, and then not have it happen. So that's my impression.
Good evening, Lauren Matzke, Planning and Development. And I apologize for this, but I need to make a correction. Specific to the development agreements that allocate the rooms from the density reserve, there was a code amendment processed many years ago, and this is the first hearing for those. So for this particular type of development agreement, the city council wanted to have both readings. it kind of changed the routine. So a standard development agreement still goes to the Community Development Board first and then to City Council. But in this instance, City Council wanted to see the conceptuals and be involved at both hearings, so they could provide some feedback and any modifications could be made still at the conceptual level, whereas after this, it would follow that there would be a planning application, and that goes to the Community Development Board.
So for a historical perspective, so what we're asking, or what the agenda item is asking council to do tonight is, one, if there is any direction to staff regarding the agreement, that council provide that direction tonight. But more importantly, the only motion that will be accepted tonight is to confirm the public hearing for the 20th. That's really the only thing, the only action to be taken tonight.
Okay. Okay, any council discussion?
We talked about it Monday, and I'm sure we'll talk about it on the 20th. This was previously approved. We've reduced density. You've increased 50 public parking spaces, which solves some issues down there. And we're putting some public beach amenities that are kind of needed on that south side of our beach. So I'm excited, looking forward to it. And there are questions that arise about infrastructure and water and sewer and stormwater. It was approved, and it was identified that we were in a perfect place as far as the ability to handle it at a higher density, and now we're going at a smaller density. Therefore, we would have no problem on the infrastructure side.
Exactly. As envisioned by Beach by Design and the reserve, you're allowed up to the 1.0 floor area ratio, and they're slightly under that. So.
Councilmember Cotton? Yeah.
I was simply going to move into a motion.
Well, I'll just add,
Okay.
you know, we talked, and I talked Monday about traffic, how we need to address traffic flow out there regardless, because it's not just this property, it's other properties, they're all in the pipeline coming through, and talked about that, and I think we're starting the process of taking a closer look at that. But it's really, you know, we've already been dealt a hand with the number of units that were allocated for Beach by Design, and I hope those in the public concerned about this particular proposal understand that it's there may be unintended consequences of not doing and not working with the folks to right-size this property, because it could cause problems for other places closer to where their homes are at. So it's not necessarily as easy as one might think out there. I live out there too, so you know, I'm aware of this property and aware of all the issues that folks might be raising. But you know, we're working through a Beach by Design plan that, if we could turn the clock back, I'm not sure we would have approved it the way we did way back in the day. But it is what it is, and all these rights are out there, and we've got to work through them and do the best we can to manage it to the benefit of everybody here in Clearwater, including the property owners of the properties that are like the property owners here before us tonight. So I just wanted to say that before we. So the motion is just to put it on the agenda for the CDB, I guess.
Not
To
for
approve a
CDB, it
second
would be
hearing.
for the 20th,
For
so
the
it would
20th,
be come
yeah.
for council for
Okay.
approval at that time.
Yeah. So
February 20th.
Yeah, it's,
Okay.
so you have that motion.
yes, sir.
Okay, but
Yep.
one second.
Yep, 1 second.
We're confirming the applicant's representative is here and does have a
Availability.
presentation, so I'm confirming if,
Okay.
yes, okay. Which is part of the he is allowed to speak, so.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, joined by Elizabeth Libby Rodriguez, our traffic engineer and traffic planner, and our architect, Estevan Petronich, who is AIE or AIA and LEED certified as an architect. I do believe that under our code, we are required to have a full hearing tonight. I don't want there to be any appellate issues. This is a legislative decision, so I want to make sure we protect the process. The business task force actually was the one that requested that the council approve the development agreements at 2 hearings before it goes to CDB, so that if the council had any significant problems with the development agreement, we would know that ahead of time, so we didn't go through the CDB process if we had to change something. So I do just think
In
for
light
the
in light of
record.
that, I think we're going to agree we'll invite public comment after you've taken it.
Thank you, sir. So very, very briefly, as you all well know, this property is in the tourist district. It's got a future land use of resorts facilities high. The original development agreement was approved in October of 2014. It expired on October 1 of 2024. There's been a suggestion that these units return to the reserve or should have returned to the reserve, and that suggestion is incorrect, and I'll tell you why. First, because this application for a new development agreement was applied for on September 4th, 2024, prior to the expiration of the development agreement. And that is the city's process to reserve the units. So these units were never taken away from this property. The second reason it's incorrect is because we have a development order for a site plan that was approved by the CDB, and that development order is valid until March of 2027. So it's our position that these units are allocated to this site through March of 2027. The reason we're doing this development agreement now is because there's a new developer, a new buyer, and a new design. The development agreement that's operative was actually amended by the council in 2022 for the current design, and that application was unopposed. There was no public comment. All the council members were very much in favor of it. So I did want to just talk about that part of the process. As you know, we're reducing the density. The density is reducing from over 90 units an acre to 77 units an acre. We're adding a small restaurant and some retail space, and it's entirely parked. It's over code for parking. 162 spaces for units, 50 spaces for the general public on the beach, and 186 spaces for the restaurant and the retail space. As Mr. Margolis said, this is actually an important development agreement for you because it's the first development agreement that has additional performance milestones so that the units will return to the reserve if those milestones are not met. Under the old development agreements, the only milestone requirement was that you get a development order from the CDB within 1 year, which this site did, and it was extended again and again based on executive orders related to tropical storms, hurricanes, etc., which is a statute, section 252.363. In this development agreement, it's a new process which allows for the city to take the units back even if there's a development order. So it requires the units to be built within a time certain. So we still have to get the site plan approval within 1 year. We have to commence vertical construction within 4 years, and we have to obtain a certificate of occupancy within 6 years. If any of those milestones are met, then the units will go back to the reserve, regardless of whether there's a development agreement, regardless of whether that development agreement has been extended. I think there's going to be a suggestion that we didn't properly extend the development agreements. We did. Or the development order, sorry, the development orders we did. Those are simple requests that are sent to be invoked under the statute whenever there's an executive order. The record is very clear on that, and we have an operative development order through March of 2027. Additionally, we've talked about concurrency. This was an exhaustive process. This process was analyzed by independent experts by the city of Clearwater, traffic experts, planning experts, economic experts, economists. The reason for this reserve was because during the Great Recession, a lot of the hotel rooms went away and they were reserved for condos that were never built. So during the Great Recession, we lost our economic engine, and now you've got this great economic engine because of these reserve units. It basically came back overnight by 2013, 2014, 2015, which was a huge benefit to the citizens of Clearwater from a tax base perspective, from tourism. The reason we have over 1 million tourists a year is because we have these units. And again, these units are nothing new. They've been in the code now since 2007, 2008. They were approved by Pinellas County for Pinellas. They were approved by the Pinellas Planning Council. They were approved by the state of Florida. So this has all been analyzed, and again, these units have been reserved for this site. Now, going back to 2014, we have a new buyer, a new developer with better performance milestones. The other suggestion I think you're going to hear is that we shouldn't be able to have a restaurant. If I can flip to the overhead, this section of Beach by Design, which created the density reserve, specifically allows for accessory uses, and it says accessory uses inconsistent with amenities typical of mid-period priced hotels shall require compliance with the FAR. we're in compliance with the FAR. I would argue a restaurant that's 6,000 square feet is not inconsistent with a mid-priced hotel. You've got restaurants at the Edge, you've got restaurants at the Holiday Inn, there's restaurants at Pier House 60, AC Marriott, all of those hotels. So thank you for indulging us to go through the process and making sure we comply with the code. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. Does anyone here from the public desire to speak to this agenda item?
Ryan always does such a great job. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, Ms. Poirier, Mr. Margolis. My name is Rudy Michaelek. I live at 855 Bayway Boulevard in Clearwater Beach, and I'm actually speaking against this unit. The developer has had over 10 years in order to put this project through. We've just heard a litany of excuses of why that didn't happen, but that's not really what's here. He's had the opportunity to do it. He didn't do it. He didn't meet the timelines of that project. That project should have come to an end. Mr. Ongst also mentioned that a new project was started before the end of that, therefore there was consistency. Well, how can he apply for something as a new independent individual for units that aren't there yet? Because they didn't expire, as he said, till October of 24. So how can he come in on September and say suddenly, I can apply for it then? Also, the planning department has been delinquent in that they used to provide a document, I don't know if this will show up or not, a report that they put out that would show what was approved, what was under construction, and ultimately what units were still available or pending. That document has not been updated in a substantial amount of years, I believe. For the last 4 or 5 months, we've attempted through planning to get a copy of an updated one. There is none available. The question becomes is what projects have been approved, what projects are pending, what projects never got off the ground, what projects missed timelines that are required within the rules and regulations in order to get an adequate timing for permitting and then into construction. That document has never been updated. And as an example, there were at least 2 hotels in the last several months that applied through the transfer of units system by going to a third party, in this case the Yacht Club on Clearwater, to get some of their density units to move to those other hotels. That was the Hyatt and the Holiday Inn / Edge. Okay, I'm sure that cost them a bit of money in order to do, because why would the Yacht Club just give that away? Were those beds available in the pool, they could have gone into the pool and asked for those beds to increase their density. And that would have been rightful for them to do. I think somebody should look at who the attorneys for all those transactions representing those different people and see if there was a possible conflict of interest there. Thirdly, there's never been an accumulative, comprehensive infrastructure plan put together or updated now on total capacities of the city needs as they relate to all this new construction that's gone on to the beach. We keep talking about beach by design that started some 30 years ago, was updated, I think, 15 years ago. But that's not what's going on in the city today. So I ask that you please do not approve this, or at least put a moratorium on to get some studies done on what the city can do, especially in light of the strategic planning discussions that are going on now, right now, about infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. Is anyone else here from the public who desire to speak to agenda item 7.2? Okay, if not, now is there a motion?
Real quick, I do have a question, though. It does sound like Mr. Ongst relayed all of the different extensions. Does that sound correct, Mr. Margolis? I mean, it looks like it flows pretty well.
All right, just a few things on this. So first of all, I do definitely agree with Ms. Baskey. Correction on the hotel density agreements, unlike the others, both public hearings are in front of council. So she's correct, appreciate her saying that. The substance of this is very interesting. I mean, the city attorney's office, first of all, is fully supportive of this item. We've been involved in this, doing it together with planning. I do have a little bit of a different take than Mr. Ongst as to the interpretation of the existing agreement, but we're fully supportive of the revised one. So I think, and again, this is one of those cases where some institutional knowledge can be helpful. Then if I say anything that is incorrect, we'll defer to Ms. Matzke on this. But as I understand it, the hotel density reserve, when it was first created, was a rather large pool. In other words, there was plenty of units to go around. And so there was never any fear or danger at that time that the units were going to be easily consumed. Now we have reached a point in our development cycle where the units have been allocated. We don't have hardly any, left available in our pool. They have either already been constructed or they're at least allocated to certain properties or projects. So it's not as if we have a bunch of units sitting around for people. Now that we've come to the end of the pool, those available density units have become a rather valued commodity. They have actual value because obviously if you can build a more dense project, you can make more money off of that. So developers who have not used those units typically want to hold on to them or find some way to monetize those units. But that's a challenge for us on a city staff level because those units were created for a reason. We don't really want property owners just holding the units on vacant land. That doesn't do anything. So ultimately, those units were created to be used. So the question is, as a city, how do you balance, on one hand, the objective to have those units get used for their intended purpose, but on the other hand, sometimes they're allocated already to projects that are not moving forward. And as Mr. Michael had pointed out, this particular project, look, it hasn't moved. I mean, that's objectively true. It's been sitting there for over 10 years. So when this development agreement was signed in 2014, it was a 10-year development agreement. That's because our code says that for hotel density reserve, it's 10 years maximum. I was not here when it was adopted, but I do believe the intention behind that was to ensure that projects actually get built during that time, or at least they start construction during that time. And so what happens now when we get to 2024 and the project doesn't get built, but those commodities, those units are now resting with the property? You now have competition for those units, other people who are interested in the units, but the owner of that project hasn't actually built anything. So that's the challenge, is how do we deal with that? And that's what led to the conversation with Mr. Ongst. My personal opinion, personal interpretation of the existing development agreement is that it does require timely construction of the units. I do not think that happened here under any interpretation, and I do believe the city has a legal right to recover the units if we so choose. However, that does not mean it is the recommendation of the city attorney's office. Our recommendation, in concert with city staff, is to approve this modified agreement. And the reason for that is simple. Number one, if we take back the units, they're just going to go somewhere else. It is not going to address Mr. Michaelik's concern about density and development on the beach. Those units are going to a project. It's just a question of where you want that density to go. And second, if the council does still want the density reserve to be used, meaning you still want to see actual development, then it makes sense to put some milestones on there. I do agree with Mr. Ongst that the 2014 agreement at least was ambiguous as to what it meant for timely construction. Now, this version, as Mr. Ongst said, will be a new template that does put some timelines on there, which did not really exist under the 2014 agreement. Again, I think the city could rationally argue that we would be able to recapture the units, but they would just get built somewhere else. And so if the objective of the council is to have the projects get built, then my personal opinion and personal recommendation is that this is probably a good place for them. I know that Mayor and I have talked about 405 Coronado. We've all been to that area. And in my personal opinion, although a policy judgment for council, this is a property that would certainly benefit from the development. And so if you're going to have development somewhere and those density units are going to get used somewhere, I think this is a good project for it. And if it doesn't happen, where it doesn't occur within that 4-year period, then this agreement is crystal clear that the units do go back, and the city will have an opportunity at that time to revisit the entire concept of whether you want to eliminate those units at that point in time, whether you want to expand the pool, or where is the city comfortable in terms of density on the beach? Because we know this is a challenge as we get late in the development cycle and as there are fewer and fewer reasonable opportunities to build on the beach. So that's
Thank you very much for that.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I think this is a good project. I like the paring down of the density and having some more like restaurants there. And what I really like is the milestones, the 3 milestones that are set up. If this doesn't happen, then it comes back. So I'm going to support this.
And I think Mr. Margolis made a good point. This is the point I was trying to make earlier, that these units that are out there, they have a lot of value because we're getting down. So you have to be careful that you're not complaining that they're not building units fast enough if you don't want more units built on the beach. And so that's really, at the end of the day, all you're doing is motivating them to find a developer to build faster, when what you really want is for them to take their time and to not put those units in, because very few folks who own these units are just going to let them go back into the pool. Very few. So really, by putting them under pressure to meet timelines for starting construction, you're just motivating them to put more units out there faster than they otherwise would if you gave them more time, more cushion to develop the property. So, okay. Anything else from anybody? Okay, with that?
No, thank you very much. I do want to say that I think you can see the council here. We understand the infrastructure needs that are out on North Beach, so I agree with all the sentiments that are up there. Thank you very much, Mr. Margolis, for diving into that a little bit deeper. And I do want to follow up with the document, too, on what might be available in the pool, see where we're at with that. But with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve Agenda Item 7.2.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Okay. Move to agenda item 8, city manager reports.
Nothing, sir.
Okay. Agenda item 9, city attorney reports.
Nothing at this time.
Agenda item 10, closing comments by council members. Councilmember Cotton.
At this time, I've got nothing. I appreciate all of you. We got the Phillies that have mobilized for spring training, so we look forward to that. Thank you to staff for working diligently and hard to make us baseball ready, and looking forward to that starting back up, and welcoming all of the Phillies fans that don't live here to the area for some good spring training baseball. And look forward to seeing you at the next meeting.
Just want to wish everyone a good evening.
Okay. Councilmember Menino.
Nothing.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I do have something. Last Friday was the launch of PSTA's Clearwater Ferry maiden voyage. The Clearwater Ferry has 2 new ferries that are going to put into their boats, and that will go from Clearwater Beach to the mainland, from Coachman Park to Clearwater Beach, and eventually back to Dunedin when they get their docks fixed. But I did talk to Brad from PSTA, and he said that they're looking into maybe getting some temporary docks, floating docks for Dunedin that they can use, so we can get this service back up faster than they can rebuild their docks up there. So that's a good thing. Also, I thought it was interesting, Hart got a federal grant for Cross Bay Ferry, and that they'd never used. And so PSTA is seeing if we could transfer that grant to PSTA on the Cross Bay Ferry, and it may end up either buying 1 or 2 ferry boats that we can really enact that Cross Bay Ferry. I know that doesn't have anything to do with Clearwater, but in a way it does, because our Waterborne Transportation Committee that met during COVID envisions a ferry service starting in Clearwater that would go all the way down to the mouth of Tampa Bay and come up to downtown St. Pete's and connect all the ferries services together. and run by an MPO, which is PSDA, which can get federal money to help support. So I'm real excited about that. I think that's a good opportunity. If we can get that ferry, that money over to the Cross Bay Ferry, then it'll help putting all our ferry services from here all the way to there, maybe make it happen a little bit quicker, which is kind of exciting. So just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you. That will move to item 11, closing comments by mayor. I just wanted to share tonight just what an exciting time of year this is for, we've got Black History Month activities going on. We've got all kinds of wonderful activities going on in Clearwater for families and bringing families together to celebrate all kinds of different things. And it's so many events that often I stumbled on 3 here in the past week that I didn't even know were going on. And they were fantastic, inspiring events. There was, I forget what the name of the Clearwater Classic, but it was a strongman competition where folks did, some of the young ones were really big, like 3 times my size, strong, muscular folks getting out there to do it. But it was men and women, and for every person out there that was a professional weightlifter out there competing, there were moms. There was an elderly woman I met out there who was 76 years old, came all the way here from Australia to compete out on Clearwater Beach. The only way I knew about the competition was I drove by the roundabout. I was getting my hair cut across the street. What's going on over there? And I walked over to see what it was about. And I saw her compete. I saw women who struggled to get the weight off the start line, and everybody cheering for them, everybody encouraging them, just the personal success and challenge that was going on right there in our community, and we didn't see it or know about it. And then I was blessed with the opportunity, Misty Wells, who's got a show on the Discovery Channel. She's a professional fishing guide here and does a lot of work on television, and Mike Allstott, who played for the Bucks in the Hall of Fame. His family foundation invited me to go on a fishing excursion with a group of 35 kids who are currently in foster home care. And they asked me when I got on the boat if Mayor, are you going to fish today? I said, no, I'm going to help these kids fish. And I tell you, I had the best time seeing a lot of those kids who would never otherwise get a chance to go out on a boat, let alone try to catch fish. Help them take that fish off that hook and get a picture taken with them and just share the joy of that kid having an experience that they would never have had if our community hadn't pulled together to offer it to them. And then the third thing is today, went out to run an errand. I'm all the way out on Drew Street, and I'm coming past Erie Moore Complex, and I see 2 tour buses, and I see all these kids out there on the fields, and I see MLB, and so, what's this about? So I pull over, and we have, over the next 2 weekends, some of the best college softball teams in the country playing in 2 different tournaments. The National Fast Pitch Coaches Association tournament's this weekend out there at the Eddie Moore Complex, and then the ESPN softball tournament is the following week. And so Major League Baseball is sponsoring a field day for these kids from Eisenhower Elementary. Again, a school where many of those kids would never have the opportunity had it not been for this program. They were out there with the Duke University college softball team, was the coaches for the stations, and they were running through these kids through all kinds of drills and things and having the most fantastic time. But it encourages me and inspires me so much to see all these things going on in our community. And there are probably many more things going on I don't even know about. I'd love to know about, because they are so important to the future of our city. Every kid that gets one experience like that, like the kids at Eisenhower, the fishing trip, or the other things that happen, it changes the future and trajectory of this community for years to come. Our kids, our youth, that's our future. And so I thank these groups that I've just discovered that are doing that. But I know there are people here in the audience, they tell me probably after tonight, I hope you will, about all kinds of things happen in our community to encourage kids, because it's inspiring to me and all the council to see those things happening. And we encourage you to share those with us, invite us to them if you have a community activity, because we all want to support that thing, because it's so important for the future of Clearwater. So with that, we've got a big spring break, spring training coming, and appreciate, again, I've said on Monday, I can't thank the city manager, city team enough for getting us to the point where we can invite the world back to enjoy a great spring break and spring training here. We've told the Phillies this week that, and Phillies fans, they come to Clearwater Beach, they'll see a few scars. Understandable, 2 hurricanes in 2 weeks, just 4 months ago. But by and large, it's the same Clearwater Beach they've come to love for all the 79 years that the Phillies have been coming here for spring training. So thank you again to all of our city team for the amazing work you did on putting our city back together. And with that, if there's no other business to come for the council, we will adjourn the February 6, 2025 meeting of the Clearwater City Council.